There's a moment most people don't notice when they begin their manifestation journey. It's subtle but powerful. The moment the ego quietly takes over. It says, if I just work harder, visualize more, repeat affirmations longer, control every detail, then the universe will finally give me what I want. On the surface, it sounds logical. After all, our entire society is built on this equation. Effort equals reward. But in the quantum field, this equation falls apart. The field doesn't respond to effort. It responds to resonance. And the irony is that the more the ego tries to push, the more it vibrates lack. The more it complicates, the more it blocks. What you think is helping you manifest is actually the very thing standing in the way. Let me illustrate with a story. Imagine someone planting a seed. The ego can't stand the stillness of waiting. It wants proof, results, control. So it keeps digging up the soil every day to check if the seed is growing. It waters too much, rearranges the soil, pulls at the fragile sprout before it's ready. And what happens? The seed never has the chance to take root. This is what so many people do with their desires. They plant the intention, but never let the field do its part. They overcomplicate with doubts, control, timelines, and comparisons, and then they wonder why nothing grows. In quantum physics, simplicity is the principle of coherence. Coherence means everything working in harmony, the particles aligned, the waves stabilized, the system flowing. When your energy is coherent, the field reflects it instantly. But the ego fears simplicity. It doesn't trust easy. It whispers, it can't be that simple. It has to be more complicated. I need to do more, force more, prove more. That is the trap. The ego thrives in complexity. It feels safe when it has problems to solve, strategies to analyze, goals to chase. But the field doesn't care about strategies. It only cares about frequency. And frequency is blocked when the ego adds static. Neuroscience shows us why the ego lives in the prefrontal cortex in constant analysis, judgment, and prediction. When overactive, it triggers the nervous system into fight or flight. Heart rate rises, cortisol floods the body, and suddenly your energy is incoherent. You're broadcasting fear, lack, urgency. No matter what words you speak or visualizations you attempt, the signal the field receives is, I don't trust, I don't have, I'm not enough. And the universe, like a perfect mirror, reflects that state back to you. The more you try, the more you chase, the more you push, the further away your manifestation feels. Spiritual traditions have warned us about this for centuries. Mystics spoke of the small self, the false identity obsessed with control. Buddhists called it Maya, the illusion that keeps you trapped. Jesus referred to it as dying to yourself in order to be reborn in spirit. Modern teachers like Eckhart Tolle describe it simply as the egoic mind. All of them point to the same truth. The ego cannot create miracles because it doesn't believe in ease. It only knows struggle.
It only knows separation. But the quantum field is not separation. It is wholeness, flow, connection. When you surrender the ego, you step into that wholeness. Here's the paradox. The ego believes that letting go means losing control. But in the quantum field, letting go is what gives you control. The kind that doesn't come from force, but from alignment. Think of a surfer on a wave. The ego wants to control the ocean. It wants to rearrange the tide, direct the current, demand that the wave move differently. But the true master doesn't fight the wave. They align with it. They ride it. The wave carries them, not because they forced it, but because they surrendered to its natural flow. That's quantum manifestation. The field is the wave. Your ego can't push it, but your soul can ride it. So if you've ever wondered why manifestation feels heavy, why you keep repeating practices without results, or why you're exhausted from trying, it's because the ego is overcomplicating what was always meant to be simple. The field isn't blocking you, your ego is. It creates endless conditions, endless steps, endless resistance, while the truth is right in front of you. Alignment is effortless. Coherence is simple. Resonance is natural. And here's the open loop I want you to hold. What if the most powerful thing you could do for your manifestation is not to add more steps, but to remove them? What if the block was never outside of you, but within the ego that refuses to believe ease is possible? Stay with me, because we're about to uncover why the ego resists simplicity so strongly, and why releasing it is the only way to step into effortless quantum manifestation.
At its core, the ego is terrified of simplicity. It thrives on problems to solve, puzzles to analyze, challenges to overcome. If things are easy, the ego feels useless, invisible, irrelevant. That's why in the realm of manifestation, the ego secretly complicates what was always designed to be effortless. It whispers, if it's this simple, it can't be real. If I'm not struggling, I must not be doing enough. And so people pile on more rituals, more steps, more affirmations, more control, all in an attempt to satisfy the ego's addiction to complexity. But here's the truth. The universe doesn't respond to effort. It responds to frequency. And frequency is born in coherence, not complexity. Albert Einstein once said, "Everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler." He understood that nature itself is efficient. The laws of physics don't complicate. They express profound truths in simple equations. E is mc squared isn't a long formula, it's elegance distilled. In the same way, the quantum field doesn't require elaborate rituals to respond to you. It responds to your state of being, your energy, your coherence, your alignment. The ego, however, wants to add layers of unnecessary noise. It wants guarantees, control, timelines, safety nets, and all of that noise scrambles your signal. Let's look at this through quantum mechanics. In experiments like the double-slit test, particles behave as waves of probability until observed.
Observation collapses the wave into matter. But what's fascinating is this. The collapse doesn't require effort. It doesn't require force. It happens instantly, naturally. As soon as attention aligns with possibility. This is simplicity at the quantum level. And yet the ego refuses to believe it could be that easy. It wants to inject struggle where none is needed. It turns a simple collapse of possibility into a complicated process of endless steps. Dr. Joe Dispenza explains this beautifully in his work. He says that most people are addicted to the familiar emotions of stress, fear, and control. Their bodies are conditioned to feel unsafe unless they are doing something. But when you are constantly doing, you are reinforcing a vibration of lack. I don't have it yet, so I must work harder to get it. That very signal keeps your desire distant. Dispenza's research shows that when people enter heart-brain coherence, when they release control and simply become the state of their desired future, the field responds immediately. Healings occur, synchronicities flood in, timelines shift, not because they did more, but because they allowed more. The ego, however, interprets allowance as weakness. It says, if I stop trying, nothing will happen. But physics tells us the opposite.
Energy flows along the path of least resistance. Manifestation happens through coherence, not effort. When you stop overcomplicating, your energy becomes clear, ordered, magnetic. The field, like a perfect mirror, reflects that clarity back to you. But when you overcomplicate, You create static, distortion, noise. The mirror reflects that too. Confusion, delay, scarcity. The ego then points to the chaos and says, "See, you need me. You need more effort." And the cycle continues. Spiritual traditions have always taught that truth is simple. Jesus said, "Unless you become like little children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven." Children don't complicate. They imagine, they feel, they trust. Their energy is clear, their hearts coherent. That's why their manifestations are immediate. They live in simplicity. The ego, on the other hand, is like a lawyer who never stops arguing. It fills your mind with conditions. You can't be happy until this happens. You can't relax until you have proof. You can't trust until you control everything. But the field doesn't respond to arguments. It responds to vibration. And vibration is clearest when it's simple. So here's the paradox. The ego believes complexity equals control. But in truth, complexity equals resistance. Simplicity equals alignment. Complexity keeps you trapped in survival.
Simplicity frees you into creation. This is why so many people struggle with manifestation. They've handed the process to the ego, letting it pile on more and more effort until the signal is so noisy the field can't respond. But the ones who learn to simplify, to feel instead of force, to trust instead of chase, to align instead of overthink, those are the ones who experience effortless quantum leaps. So ask yourself honestly, is your ego overcomplicating your manifestation? Are you adding layers of ritual, doubt, and control to something that was always meant to be natural? If so, you're not failing, you're just in the ego trap. And the way out isn't more effort, it's less. It's remembering the elegance of simplicity. Because the moment you release the ego's need for complexity, you begin to see that the universe has always been ready. The only thing missing was your trust. Stay with me, because next we'll uncover the science of overthinking, how the ego literally rewires your nervous system into survival mode, and why this state blocks the very manifestations you're trying to create.
Let's get honest. How many nights have you lain awake replaying the same thought over and over again? How many times have you set an intention only to immediately start questioning when will it happen? How will it happen? What if it doesn't happen? That cycle is the ego in action. It dresses itself as being responsible or thinking ahead, but in truth, it's overthinking. And overthinking is one of the greatest blocks to quantum manifestation. Here's why. Your brain is a prediction machine. Neuroscientists call it predictive coding. It's constantly scanning the environment, comparing the present moment with memories of the past, and trying to forecast the future. When you've spent years living in stress or disappointment, your brain predicts more of the same. That means even when you set a new intention, your subconscious filters it through the old patterns. You say, "I want abundance," but your brain says, "Last time you tried that, it failed. Better prepare for lack." That prediction triggers your nervous system into survival mode. And in survival mode, your body can't distinguish between a real threat and an imagined one. It reacts with the same stress signals: adrenaline, cortisol, shallow breathing, rapid heartbeat. Suddenly, instead of broadcasting abundance, you're broadcasting fear. The HeartMath Institute has shown that the body's physiological state deeply impacts intuition and manifestation. When your heart rhythm is chaotic, as it is under stress, your perception narrows. You literally become less able to notice opportunities, synchronicities, and solutions. In contrast, when your heart rhythm is coherent, your brain and body enter harmony, expanding awareness and opening access to the quantum field. Overthinking destroys this coherence. It traps you in a loop of survival where all you can manifest is more reasons to worry. Dr. Joe Dispenza explains it clearly. Your personality creates your personal reality. If your personality is addicted to stress, to analyzing, to control, then your personal reality will reflect that addiction. You'll live in the same cycles because your energy hasn't changed. Overthinking is the ego's way of keeping you in those cycles. It convinces you that worry equals safety, that analyzing equals progress. But all it really does is reinforce the vibration of separation and lack. Quantum mechanics gives us a mirror of this truth. In superposition, a particle can exist in many possible states. But when we measure it, when we collapse the wave, it snaps into one. Overthinking is like measuring reality over and over again with the same lens. Instead of allowing the field to collapse into a new possibility, the ego keeps collapsing it back into the familiar.
It's like standing at the doorway of a new timeline, but choosing again and again to walk back into the old one, simply because the ego is too afraid to step into the unknown. Spirituality has always warned us of this trap. In Buddhism, overthinking is called monkey mind, the restless chatter that never stops. In the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu wrote, "Stop thinking and end your problems." He wasn't dismissing the mind, he was pointing to the truth that endless analysis creates suffering. Mystics knew what science now confirms. The mind's obsession with control is the very thing that blocks the flow of life. Here's the irony. Overthinking feels productive. The ego whispers, "If I think harder, I'll find the solution." But in the quantum field, solutions don't come from harder thinking. They come from higher vibration. They come from coherence. They come when the mind is quiet enough to hear the whisper of intuition. Think of those moments when your best ideas arrived in the shower, or on a walk, or right before sleep. That wasn't overthinking. That was space. That was openness. That was the ego finally quiet enough for the field to speak. So what can you do? The first step is awareness. Notice when you're caught in the loop. Notice when your nervous system is revved up, when your chest is tight, when your thoughts are spinning. In that moment, pause. Breathe deeply. Place your attention on your heart. This simple act begins to reset your nervous system from survival to coherence. As your body calms, your signal clears, the static fades, the broadcast sharpens. You begin to tune back into the frequency of your desired reality. Overthinking is not your fault, it's your conditioning. But the moment you see it, you have a choice. You can continue collapsing the same old timeline, or you can step into the unknown, trusting that the field responds not to your doubts, but to your coherence.
The ego will always tempt you to complicate, analyze, and control. But you are not the ego. You are the observer, the consciousness, the signal itself. And when you stop letting the ego overthink, you finally give the field permission to deliver what was waiting all along. Stay with me, because next we'll break down the exact signs that your ego is interfering with your manifestation and how to shift them immediately into alignment. By now, you're probably starting to recognize that the ego doesn't always show up as arrogance or pride. In manifestation, it disguises itself as logic, responsibility, planning, or even spiritual discipline. It wears masks so convincing that most people don't realize they are manifesting from ego until they've exhausted themselves with rituals that never work. But the field is precise. It doesn't respond to masks, it responds to vibration. And when the vibration is coming from the ego, the outcome will always feel complicated, delayed, or incomplete. So how do you know when your ego is blocking your manifestation? Let's break it down into 3 clear signs. 1. You repeat desires without embodiment. You say the words, write the affirmations, create the vision boards, but deep down, you don't feel it as real. The ego loves to keep you in the mental loop of wanting without ever crossing into the vibrational state of being. It convinces you that repetition equals progress, but in truth, repetition without embodiment is just static. It's the signal of lack dressed as effort. 2. You demand proof before trust. The ego says, "I'll believe it when I see it." But the quantum field works the opposite way. You'll see it when you believe it. Waiting for proof before feeling aligned sends the vibration of doubt. It's like telling the field,
I don't trust you yet. And the field mirrors that uncertainty back. This is why manifestations stall, not because the field is withholding, but because the ego refuses to trust first. 3. You obsess over the how. The ego is addicted to control. It wants to know every step, every detail, every timeline. It whispers, if I don't figure this out, it won't happen. But manifestation doesn't work by logic, it works by resonance. When you fixate on how, you collapse your field of possibilities into a narrow corridor. You cut yourself off from the infinite ways the universe could deliver. The ego thinks it's protecting you, but really it's blocking the miracle. Now here's the liberating truth. Once you see these patterns, you can break them. Awareness is the first crack in the ego's armor. The moment you recognize, this is just my ego overcomplicating again, you create distance.
You stop identifying with the voice of control and start aligning with the quiet pulse of intuition. That shift alone begins to clear your signal. But let's make this practical right now. Pause and reflect. Where in your life has the ego been complicating what was meant to be simple? Where have you been repeating instead of embodying, doubting instead of trusting, controlling instead of allowing? You don't need to judge yourself. You don't need to fight the ego. You simply need to acknowledge it and release its grip. Because every time you release the ego's control, you return to coherence. And coherence is the only language the quantum field understands. To anchor this shift, I want to invite you to make a declaration. Not to me, not even to the world, but to the field itself. Type these words in the comments right now. I release control. This isn't just a phrase, it's a quantum command. When you declare it with intention, you signal to your nervous system, your subconscious, and the field that you are ready to step out of ego and into alignment. You're not begging the universe anymore, you're aligning with it. And notice what happens as you hold that declaration. The mind quiets, the body softens, the frequency shifts, because the field doesn't need your overthinking. It needs your coherence. The ego complicates, but the soul simplifies. The ego doubts, but the field mirrors. And the moment you say, I release control, you step into the simplicity that the quantum always rewards. Stay with me, because next we'll go deeper into the heart of this shift, what it really means to move beyond the ego into effortless manifestation, and how that state changes not just your desires, but your entire life. If the ego is the static, then coherence is the music. The shift beyond ego is not about destroying the ego. It's about putting it back in its rightful place. The ego was never meant to lead your manifestation. Its role is to protect, to navigate, to execute tasks. But when it becomes the driver, your reality turns into a struggle of endless effort. The quantum field doesn't need the ego's effort. It needs your alignment. And once you shift into that alignment, manifestation stops being a chase and starts being a natural unfolding. Think of the ego as a flashlight. It focuses narrowly on one spot, illuminating only what is directly in front of you. Useful in survival. But manifestation requires a different kind of vision, more like the sun radiating in all directions, touching everything at once. That is the higher self, the part of you that can sense the field, feel the connections, trust the unseen. The shift beyond ego is stepping from the flashlight into the sun, from control into illumination. Science supports this shift in fascinating ways. Brain scans of advanced meditators like those studied in Dr. Joe Dispenza's workshops show decreased activity in the default mode network, the part of the brain associated with self-referential thinking, or ego chatter. At the same time, there is increased synchronization across brain regions, creating what's called global coherence. This is the biological signature of a mind moving beyond ego. Instead of fragmented signals, the brain broadcasts harmony.
And when the brain and heart align, the field responds instantly. People report spontaneous healings, synchronicities, and manifestations that defy logic, not because they worked harder, but because they stepped beyond ego into coherence. Spiritual traditions have always taught this principle. The yogis spoke of dissolving the ahamkara, the false self. Mystics spoke of dying to the little self to awaken the divine. Neville Goddard described it as living from the end, embodying the desired state so fully that there is no gap between you and your manifestation. All of them were pointing to the same truth. The ego keeps you in separation, but your higher self lives in unity. The moment you shift into unity, manifestation is no longer something you do, it is something you are. And here's where the paradox becomes your power. Shifting beyond the ego doesn't mean you stop acting, it means your action becomes aligned. Instead of frantic, fear-driven effort, your steps are inspired, guided, efficient. You don't waste energy trying to force outcomes, you move with the current of the field. Like the surfer who stops fighting the wave and starts riding it, your energy carries you effortlessly into alignment with your desires. The ego wanted control, the higher self wants flow, and flow is what the field always rewards. The emotional difference is striking. When you're stuck in ego, manifestation feels heavy, tense, uncertain. When you shift beyond ego, manifestation feels light, expansive, inevitable. You're no longer asking when will it happen, you're living in the knowing that it's already in motion. This is why mystics radiated such peace. They weren't trying to convince themselves of anything. They were already inhabiting the state of being where manifestation was a given. Their vibration was their prayer. Their coherence was their command. So what does this look like in daily life? It's choosing to breathe instead of panic. It's noticing the urge to control and instead leaning into trust. It's catching yourself overcomplicating and asking, what would this look like if it were simple? That one question is enough to dissolve the ego's grip and invite the field to respond. Because the truth is, simplicity is not laziness, it is alignment. And alignment is the shortest distance between you and your desired reality. This is the great shift, moving from effort to resonance, from ego to essence. And once you taste it, you can never go back. You realize the ego never had the power to manifest, it only had the power to block. The real creator was always your coherent self, the one that trusts, aligns, and allows. And the moment you live from that place, manifestation becomes as natural as breathing.
Stay with me, because in the final activation, I'll show you how to anchor this shift fully and how to deepen it with a practice that will stabilize your coherence so you can manifest consistently without falling back into the ego's trap. If you've come this far, something inside you already knows the truth. The ego was never the problem to fight, but the noise to quiet. It was never the villain, only the outdated lens. The real power has always been in your coherence, in your simplicity, in the resonance of who you already are. Quantum manifestation is not complicated. It is not about working harder, thinking longer, or controlling more details. It is about becoming the vibration of the outcome you desire and letting the field mirror that state back to you. Einstein reminded us that nature is simple, and its elegance lies in that simplicity. Joe Dispenza shows through science that the moment your brain and heart become coherent, the body enters creation instead of survival. Neville Goddard taught that living from the end, embodying the state as already done, is the real secret of creation. All of these voices, across science and spirituality, point in the same direction. Your ego complicates, but the universe simplifies. Imagine living each day from that state. You wake up, and instead of asking how will it happen, you feel it's already happening. You walk into challenges not with fear, but with curiosity, knowing the field is reorganizing to match your signal. You no longer beg for signs, because you've become the sign. People around you feel the shift even if they don't understand it. You radiate coherence, and coherence collapses reality in your favor every single time. This is the invitation I leave you with. Stop trying to manifest from the ego. Release the need to overcomplicate. Trust the elegance of simplicity, because simplicity is not weakness. Simplicity is quantum intelligence. It is the most efficient, powerful way the universe works. And the moment you align with that, you stop being the struggler and become the creator. Now, if this message resonated with you, if you felt something shift in your body as we went deeper today, then I've prepared something to help you stabilize this state. It's a guidebook called Awaken Your Quantum Power Inside. I share the 7 principles to activate your vibrational field with clarity so that you don't just understand these truths, you live them daily. It's the missing piece for those who want to step beyond ego and into consistent, effortless manifestation. You'll find the link to access it in the pinned comment below. Remember this, the field doesn't reward the one who tries the hardest. It responds to the one who resonates the clearest. The ego will always whisper that you're not doing enough, that it has to be more complicated, that it can't be this easy. But your higher self knows better. It knows the truth. Quantum manifestation is simple. Alignment is power, and you are already the signal. So take a deep breath, anchor this frequency, and step forward as the creator you were always meant to be. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay coherent, stay radiant, and remember, simplicity collapses miracles.